Welcome to another episode of Best and Worst. Today we're going to be covering romance. Now, as you could probably tell by my bookshelf behind me, I'm definitely more of a romantasy girly, which means if there's no magic system, I tend to not enjoy the romance. I need that kind of exciting element that comes with fantasy. We are going to discuss, as a picky romance reader, which romance books I actually love and then which ones I absolutely hated. I will say there is one main metric here. Do I actually think these people are in love? Or did I even buy the romance in the first place? There are some books where I'm like, I never really bought into the fact that you guys are in love, so this feels a little off. We're going to be covering my top 7 favorite romance books and the 7 worst romance books that I have ever read. And who knows, maybe you can turn me into a romance reader by letting me know, based off my taste, if there's something you think I would enjoy. And we're going to be starting off with book number 7 for best, and that was Nora Goes Off Script. I read this book in a single day on spring vacation. I thought the synopsis was pretty creative here. It is, I believe she's a book writer, and her book is being turned into a movie. It's been like 2 years, so forgive me if I'm botching the plot a little bit. But the actor who plays the love interest in the movie, being based off the story that she wrote, she has to spend a lot of time with him, and he kind of comes off as like this really cocky actor who thinks he's all that, but because they have to spend time together, they get to know each other. I really did enjoy that plot line. Maybe this one's a bit of a hot take. I feel like people are really mixed on this book, and that is better than the movies. I thoroughly enjoyed this book. I will also preface this with, I don't love spice. In my opinion, whenever books have spice, the author relies too much on the spice to convince me that the romance exists. If you can give me a totally fulfilling and amazing relationship story with zero spice whatsoever, you know the relationship is good. I absolutely love this book also because I did kind of see myself in the main character a little bit, having been like considered weird in high school for like being passionate about things that most people thought were odd. So I did enjoy that aspect of it as well. I just really love that relationship. I have not read Nothing Like the Movies yet, which is the second book in that little duology. So I'll be reading that hopefully by the end of this year or before the new year. Now this next one, I actually hate that it's so low on my favorites, but that is Dial A for Aunties. I absolutely loved this book. There is a lot of ESL humor in here, and my husband being Polish, like ESL humor is like really funny to me now because that's like very much just a part of our lives. So I really enjoyed that aspect to it. It felt really relatable. But then on top of it, for it to be like a murder mystery with romance as well, and it all felt so balanced. Like it was a great amount of romance, it was a great amount of comedy, great amount of murder. It was fantastic. I absolutely loved this book, and it's really short. So if you're debating reading anything from my best list, I highly recommend Dial A for Aunties. This next one, and I'm also kind of questioning how high up it is on my list, but that is No Show. The No Show is phenomenal. Something that I really loved about it was that I hated the main character up until the last couple chapters. I think what I loved about this book so much, maybe it wasn't the romance itself, but the absolute artistry of the literature itself. So take that with a grain of salt. This next one, which I also read in a single sitting, is The Summer of Broken Rules. It kind of gave me Summer I Turned Pretty vibes, where they basically vacation in the same exact place regularly, and it is their first time going back to this place since her sister's car accident where her sister died. It's like her family trying to like re-experience that vacation again, but without her. But there's like this fun twist where they're not just back there for the family vacation, because frankly they didn't feel ready for that, but one of their cousins, who also goes with them to Martha's Vineyard every single year, is having her wedding there. So the place that they go to is actually like absolutely swamped with wedding guests and stuff, and our main girl gets to know one of the groomsmen. I've actually highly debated rereading that one. Okay, this second one is, I feel like some of you are hardcore gonna judge me, but I'm obsessed with the Selection series. If you have not read it, what are you doing? It is literally The Bachelor, but The Bachelor is a prince. Need I say more? It's so catty and the drama is so enjoyable. I absolutely love that one. Then my top one for best romance books is The Love Wager. When I tell you, this is quite literally the best fake dating trope I have ever read. Frankly, I'm a little over the fake dating trope, which is really funny because I think actually like 3 of these books that I have up here, fake dating. But I've never been more obsessed with a fake dating trope in my life. It is technically the second book following Mr. Wrong Number, but in all reality, I read it before Mr. Wrong Number and we survived. We were fine. Now let's jump over to the worst and the controversial opinions and where I'm gonna get canceled and a lot of you aren't gonna like me anymore. We're gonna start with a hot one, which is number 7, the Bridgerton books. I actually, as of a week ago, have officially DNF'd this entire series. Let's see. I read Daphne's book. It was okay. I read Antony's book. I read it after watching season 2 of Bridgerton, and I think the show did season 2 so much better than the book that reading the book was actually painful for me. Then I read Benedict's book, and I actually really enjoyed it, which is the reason I picked up Collins, but I absolutely could not stand Collins. And then I decided to read just one more, which was Eloise's book. And it was at that point where I was like, why am I even trying anymore? I did decide actually to try to audiobook Felicity's because everyone was saying like, oh, Felicity's is my favorite. And I'm not gonna lie, I got halfway through and I DNF'd it. And that's when I decided I'm also not reading any of the other books in the series. So I will not be reading any more of the Bridgerton books. Next is It Ends With Us. Do I need to explain myself here? Next, and probably one of my most disappointing reads from this year, was Happily Never After. I was devastated that this book was so bad. I wanted it to be good, and I will say the first, how many? It was like the first 50 pages. I was obsessed with this book. I was like, this is a 5-star romance read? Question mark? That's rare. But then everything after the 50-page mark, there's a tiny little time jump. It's only really a couple months, I think. But everything after the time jump, like with every single chapter, it got worse and worse and worse. And I actually read this in my ABC Reading Challenge for book H. So if you really want the play-by-play and the explanation as to how frustratingly horrible this book was, you can go watch that after this. Next is Icebreaker. Remember what I said about how if there's zero romance but a bunch of spice, it's not actually romance? That's the Icebreaker for you. This next one, some people may be confused why I'm putting this here, but everyone told me it was a romance book. So I read it, expecting a romance. And there is romance in it, I suppose. But Verity? Are you guys kidding me? What was that? I'm reeling. I'm still recovering from reading Verity. It was a disturbing book in so many levels, but the romantic aspect of it might have been like up there as one of the most disturbing parts. Next is Accidentally Amy. Wow, I've never been so angry reading a romance book before. It really did seem like Lynn Painter loves pumpkin spice lattes and she wanted to write a romance around a pumpkin spice latte, and she did a cute job of doing that in the first chapter, but then everything after that was just a nightmare. You cannot convince me that these people stayed together within a month after the last chapter. They're not together. I could talk about that forever, but no, that book genuinely made me angry and like my cortisol's raising just thinking about it. So we're gonna move on. Now the last book, and I am so ready. Shall I get comfortable? I'm ready to tear this book to pieces. I made the mistake of recently reading All I Want for Christmas Is You. Wow, I have never read a worse romance book in my life. Can we just talk about, like, miscommunication tropes should not be a thing? Like, can we just make it a rule that if the main conflict in the relationship is a miscommunication trope, it is not allowed to be published. The world does not need more miscommunication tropes. And this book, it wasn't even just a miscommunication trope between the main love interests. It was a miscommunication trope between the two authors who co-wrote this book together. I don't think they read each other's chapters. The main love interest changed personalities, changed demeanors, and changed mannerisms probably 6 times throughout this book. Let me just paint this picture for you because the premise got me. I was so excited because I heard the premise. It's literally 2 people who perform in a country music singing competition. So they're like rivals, supposedly. And in the second week of the competition, they get paired up together for like a duet, a special duet. And so naturally you're like, oh great, they're gonna fall in love. Mind you, this all happens in the first 2 chapters, so it's all very rushed at the beginning. And you don't really actually get to know the characters. And so naturally when they get put together, you're like, oh my goodness, they're gonna have rehearsals together and we're gonna get them like slowly in denial falling in love with each other during rehearsals. There's a time jump and the next chapter is them performing together and they still talk and interact like they've never actually interacted outside of performing in front of the cameras. Why did we not get a single rehearsal? We didn't even get them meeting each other. I'm sorry, we didn't even get them meeting each other. The first couple hours they spent together, we missed. It wasn't even in the book. And they pretended like they never rehearsed together. And then what's even crazier is that supposedly their duet was so amazing. Like, the chemistry was popping to the point where they became a viral sensation. What chemistry? Where? Where did they get that chemistry? Did they purchase it online on Amazon? How in the world did they get chemistry in a non-existent relationship? Supposedly, they didn't even talk to each other. So, where, why, and how? Also, he's supposedly like this really grumpy guy. I think this is supposed to be Grumpy Sunshine, but they're both just grumpy. She is like a super introverted, super Eeyore. Like, she's just so glass half empty on everything. Like, neither of these people are exuding confidence. So you mean to tell me that they both hopped on stage and then all of a sudden, like, confidently just had like the most amazing, sizzling chemistry that everyone was like, they have to be dating? It was some of the laziest writing I've ever read. Anyways, I'm done talking about that book. Thanks for ranting with me, and thanks for listening to all of my controversial opinions on romance. Let me know what you agreed with and what you didn't. We probably disagreed on a lot, because frankly, I'm so unbelievably picky about my romance reads. But hey, you know what might make you happier? Because I know a good bit about romantasy books. If you want to pop over and watch my best and worst of romantasy, I highly recommend that. Or you can subscribe for all my other romantasy bookish videos, as well as Sarah J. Maas verse, book talks, and wrap-ups. And I guess I'll just see you tomorrow for another video.